Yo, what's up, guys? Hope everyone's doing well. Well, everyone that ends up catching this video, hope we're doing good. Back again with another one. Not really sure what's happening with the lighting. This cam that I've got at the moment is not the best. I'm actually getting a new one delivered today, so we should be better on that front going forward. Notification just hit. Hey, Tio, how's it going, man? Hope we're doing good, man. Good to have you here again. Yeah, so I'm doing the project setup today. Just looking at actually getting this thing kicked off and started. So the past two streams was just looking at the sort of overview of the project, sort of reasons for doing it, and the kind of tooling I'm going to be using. And then obviously the last stream that I had yesterday was looking at sort of more designs and stuff like that. So if you want any more info on that, feel free to check those out. They're on YouTube right now, and they're all split off into like chapters, so you can kind of skip ahead to whatever part that you want to, catch in a bit more detail. So oh, nice, man. Whereabouts are you based, if you don't mind me asking? 4 a.m. Is that like US time, maybe? Yeah, it's like just hit midday here in the UK. We've got pretty nice weather out. It's still pretty cold, but the sun's out, so you know I'm happy with that. Ah, LA. Okay, cool. That's nice, man. Awesome stuff. Right, so we can just kind of get this kicked off. What I'm gonna do, just for like anyone that catches this sort of in the future and maybe wants to start here, I'm just going to quickly run through just an overview of the project, really. So what we're trying to do here, essentially. So this is, I'm basically building my portfolio, like the second version of it. First version's up right now at gregogden.netlify.app. I'll pop it in the description as well. But yeah, the idea is to basically just build a second version with Next.js, just so I can learn it better and also improve coding wise as well. So I've just made like a short list of aims and stuff, things to learn, things I want to improve. So I want to learn more about Next.js, and yeah, its key features. There's a lot of them, so we'll be definitely delving into that. Learning more about advanced React features, or at least advanced in my opinion. Stuff like error boundaries, higher order components. We'll be looking at testing as well. Something I've wanted to get more into for a while now, so I thought, you know, why not start with this project? And then, yeah, stuff like measuring and optimizing performance, so looking at web vitals and the whole performance side of things. It's kind of also been like an area of interest that I've wanted to actually get to grips on. And then in terms of improving, just improving existing React knowledge and just general sort of code quality and more experience with writing like maintainable and sort of scalable code and like UI frameworks, that kind of thing. Building on UI and UX design skills. So obviously we're going to be looking at doing a few things in Figma. I'll be going through designs shortly before we get into the code. And then just also, just going into a bit more depth with accessibility and looking at sort of some solutions, common design patterns that you find in JavaScript applications, looking at auditing and testing our site, and then finding ways to implement fixes. That's kind of just a general aim of this project. And then in terms of actually doing the whole live coding thing, I think for me it works well for a couple of reasons. For one of them, sort of having this live documentation of stuff I'm working on. So there's so many times I've been working on projects where I've sort of been banging my head against the wall, like trying to fix this bug for ages. I finally get the fix, and then because I'm so like concerned with trying to hit the finish line with the project, or I just want to kind of get to the next bit, I forget to write documentation on it, and then it comes to like hitting that problem again, and then I forget how I did it last time. And I often always forget to write documentation, and you know, something that I want to improve on anyway. But I thought it could be an interesting idea to visually document stuff. So you know, these streams will pretty much be just living on YouTube after this. Obviously on Twitch they die out after a little while, but they'll be on YouTube, so they're also there for other people to refer to. I'll probably take snippets out of it and maybe make some short clips on certain around certain topics, like whether that's sort of concerning design or UX, testing, or like, you know, trying to fix a specific bug that's quite common. All of those kinds of things, I think, you know, that's kind of the benefit of live coding, and also just in terms of just developing soft skills a bit more, and sort of getting better at, you know, being more confident with coding and presenting my ideas essentially. It would be cool as well to have, you know, people share their ideas. And Tia, like, I know you're in here, like if you've got any ideas at any point, feel free just to, you know, throw them at me, and we can take a look at things together as well, because for me this is just like a whole like learning process really. So that's just a general overview of the project, but like I said, the other videos have them in kind of like a bit more depth, so feel free to jump into those, anyone, if you're interested. But let's get back to this session plan. So I've put creating the repo and initializing the project as the first step, but what I want to kind of do is just run through the design file, just as I've kind of gone through the project overview. I think it would make sense just to look at the design that will be sort of going off, and we'll be adding to this design, we'll be changing things as we go along as well. But essentially I've split off my design file, this Figma file, into a couple of different pages. So I've got a style guide here, I've got a playground, which is just messing around with some visual ideas, and then once I'm happy with them, I then create some components out of them, which I then have in this page here, and then once sort of those are all kind of set up, you know, I can then move on to mocking up and starting to actually flesh things out and get some ideas down, and that's essentially it. And then I also have, I should probably move this up here, to be honest. I've also got this design inspo page, just for nice little like design patterns and different parts of UIs from different sites that I really liked, that I kind of want to take some inspiration from. So like these kind of call to action, like these newslettery type boxes, actually came really in handy, and I'll sort of show in a second how I created some of my designs based on these. I think that this like hero image here is really cool. This actually moves. Who is it? Finch. I'll give a quick demo because it's pretty sick. Let's have a look. Let's what are they? Finance. Okay. Is Finch right? Yeah, finch.com. No, this is not the right site. Let's have a look. I should just say app, right? Is it investing? I can't seem to find it. It's on, basically, I found it on SaaS landing pages. So if you don't know about this site, SaaS landing pages, it's really, really good for getting inspiration from like a lot of startups and companies. It's split off into like all of their different pages. So, you know, say you want to get some inspiration for how you might build out a landing page, even if it's for like a small project. You know, you can just jump on here, you can look at what other people are doing, you can look at what they're doing with the colors, what they're doing with layouts. And yeah, for me, whenever I start a project, this is almost like the first place that I come to when I'm actually thinking about the design. It just gives me like a lot of ideas on how I can sort of structure my UI. So it's a really, really good tool. I'm a big fan of this. And I found Finch on here, but I'm not sure, I can't find them. So I'll show that thing later on or in a later stream. Yes, you know, here it is. Yeah, and it was actually them. So it was this site that influenced my use of the font Sora, which is what I'm actually using now. I'd actually picked a different font. I think I went with Inter, maybe Work Sans as like a body copy. But yeah, this swayed me. I saw it and I was like, man, this font is sick. I need this. So I sort of looked at what font it was. And yeah, and it tells you like the fonts, it tells you the colors they're using. You can copy them to your clipboard. Yeah, it's a really cool site. But yeah, they've got this nice, this is what I was trying to show, they've got this nice moving animation. So I'd love to test out something like this as well and see what we can get out of that. Also, just as this is coming to my mind, let me know if the levels are okay in terms of, yeah, voice to music. Hopefully the music's not too loud. But yeah, so that's just some inspiration that I kind of had with this stuff. So very cool. So anyways, let's kind of push on now. I'm just going to go roughly through what I've done here in the design file, and then we'll get on to actually setting up the repo. So yeah, in terms of like style guide, this is just the key sort of, yeah, I suppose design tokens, or what will end up being design tokens. So our key aspects of design, like color, our typography, and then I've also just added some like spacing things here. This is from Chakra UI, which is what I'm going to be using to build the UI. For anyone that doesn't know that yet or hasn't seen the previous videos, I've kind of spoke about Chakra UI at length because I'm a massive fan. So I'm also using some of their like default design tokens, just because I've used them in projects before. They work for me, so there's not really much need for me to create my own, because I know they work. But there's definitely sort of certain like aspects of the design that I'll be building on top of Chakra, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. They make it very easy to kind of customize what you need to customize, and then you can leave the rest, which is what I really like about it. So yeah, we've got a color here. I'm just taking the colors from my past portfolio, so these are the same colors that I used in terms of primary and secondary, at least. I had sort of, I know I've said primary and secondary, they're both essentially primary like colors in a sense, because like the purple is for the light mode and the teal is for dark mode. So in terms of hierarchy, they aren't like, one's not below the other, but it just makes more sense for me just to have like a primary and then a secondary. This tertiary, again, like I'm not really entirely sure about how I'm going to find some use for this, but I just thought it could be nice to have maybe in some subtle points in the app, but we'll see how we go with it, and I may or may not use that, but I thought it would be nice just to have a third color in there with a few shades. So I'll probably go into more depth about this like separately. I might make a separate video going into like the design file in depth, if people would be interested in that, just because like I want to push on with this now. So yeah, in terms of actually looking at the design, we'll do that separately. But just to give a quick overview, essentially this is just me documenting all the colors I have, and the colors actually exist in these text styles. So in Figma, whenever you create some kind of like global text styles or color styles, you can actually access them on the like right hand side, and you can't see that there, so I'm going to bring this in. That should be a bit better. Yeah, that's all right. So they're all down here now. So essentially what you do is that once you've got a color, so you can select the colors down here, so I can get rid of that, and let's say you just bring in some like different shade of purple, so like 865 CFF. Okay, so that's a different shade now, and you know, if you wanted to document that, you can come to this color styles, you can create a style, and then I'm just going to call this like bright purple, and then there you go, you now have this color. And now if I click off this, it's going to show up in the color styles now, which is kind of cool. What's more as well is that you can document these in a bit more of a structured way, and it's like you can basically create this like folder system, which is what I have for most things. So let's say I wanted to change the name of this. You just click on the color, and it's going to bring up this color styles menu again, and then you click on you hover over it, and you get this like little icon here to edit the style. So you edit that, and then you can go into the properties, you can change it to be a different shade of purple. You can actually click on this, and it brings up the color picker, so you can just mess around and, you know, find out some different shades. So let's say, okay, I want to go with like this now, that's a bit better. And let's say I just want it to be like an alternative kind of purple, so I can just say like alt, and then I can say slash, and then purple. And what that's going to do now when I come off that, so if I don't know if you saw, but if I now go down here, it's now in its own like separate kind of folder, so that when I come out here, it's now under alt, so alt purple, so it's like an alternative kind of style. And that's just kind of how quickly you can create color styles and really build out your own color palette. So I'm just going to delete this because I do not need that. And what's nice is that even when you delete these things, the color itself still stays. So obviously alt purple showing up here, even though it doesn't technically exist anymore. So you can get rid of that. I can come and press these 4 dots, and then it's going to open up the color styles again, and I can just pick what I had before. Now we're back to what we had. So that's just essentially how you can create some sort of quick color palettes. And in terms of actually creating all these shades here, I just used Smart Swatch. So it's a very nice tool. And this is inspired by Chakra. They have this kind of thing for their like color system, and we'll look at that in when we get into doing the theme, and we'll look at how we can still use their colors and use our own colors and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of just a little bit of how I sort of made the style guide. So I did that. I did a similar thing with the typography as well. You can't see it here because this is just me testing out like the actual font itself, but here on the headings you can see I've got this like desktop H1, I've got a desktop H2, over on this side I've got a mobile H1, mobile H2. So I've split off all of these different heading sizes depending on the screen size as well. And yeah, for me it's just kind of a much easier way just to see how things will work. So when it comes to like using the mockups, we don't have to create anything from scratch. We have all of these things already that we can just drag into our like file. So like say on here, you know, we don't have to go and type something and set all the styles. We can just type something out and we can select our global style, and then it will yeah, change to that accordingly. But when we get on to adding more to the mockup, maybe later on in this, you'll kind of see how that's working. Oops, I got rid of the design file there. So yeah, that's kind of it for the style guide. Just creating some basic global styles, and then I have this little playground where I'm just messing around with ideas. So this is where I'm usually working between this and, you know what, it's going to make more sense to have the design inspo above this. So I'm usually working, yeah, between that and the design inspo if I've got inspiration for that component. Some components, they like buttons, I kind of already had an idea of what they're going to look like, but for something a bit more like complex like this, newsletter sort of card, obviously I had to do a bit more thinking about how I was going to structure it, and that's where you could probably see I got some inspiration from these two ideas. I'm not sure where the one on the left's from, but this is from Lee Robinson. He works at Vercel, the guys that made Next.js. So yeah, he's got some really helpful courses on it actually, that helped me kind of get familiar with the basics. And I think I spoke about it a bit in the last stream. But he had this really nice like newsletter kind of thing here where you've got like, I'm not sure you can see it clearly, but you've got a like button inside the input, which I thought was a nice touch. So I kind of incorporated that into some of the like design thinking in terms of like layout. So I have this, obviously this one, which is more closer to what we've got on the left here, where the button's flush to the input. And then obviously I've got the other version here where I tried sort of having a button inside of that. Funnily enough, I actually settled for something a bit different. I played around with that a bit. And by the way, these red dots are, if you haven't noticed, these are kind of the things I've decided on for now. But yeah, they're still kind of constantly in review. But yeah, this is kind of the one I settled on, this one on the top left. But I actually ended up changing things a bit more over here. As you can see, I did some sort of testing with some layouts. None of these are in line. My bad. Yeah, so oops. And let's just move that in. So yeah, that's a bit better, isn't it? So let me get rid of this guy. So I started testing things out in terms of responsiveness as well. So you can see here, if I grab this, becomes responsive. Again, we'll probably look at this in more depth separately. But yeah, Figma offers some really nice features to make things like this quite like relatively straightforward to do. And so yeah, I started testing out some different colors. So maybe just having like a border around it and allowing the like background of the car to inherit the background of like the actual entire site. And that's the kind of one I went with as well, because coming over to this side, it kind of made it easier to have these different colors for success rate, and it be success and error states, and it still be nice, and it still be accessible. And what I'm actually doing to check accessibility is using the Stark plugin, which is a nice plugin that you can use just to make sure that your colors are accessible. So you can, essentially what you need to have a foreground and a background layer. So for this, I just created like a little frame that has a text element in it. And then if you select the whole frame, so it essentially selects like the text, and then the frame acts as a background. So with those highlighted, you go down to plugins, you can go into Stark, check contrast, and you wait for a second, and then it gives you this feedback on how it meets the criteria. So it shows you the criteria for large text and then for normal text as well. And if you're not sure about those sizes, you can hit this question mark and it tells you. Really helpful stuff, to be honest. So yeah, it tells you that passing color results are accurate if your font is at least 18 pixels with regular, and then 24 with bold weight, and then gives you some info about normal text as well. So pretty helpful stuff. So these are just some of the tools that I'm using to help me as well. But yeah, this is essentially the little playground for creating components, testing out what they might look like within the UI, and then once I'm kind of happy with things, yeah, I will then sort of convert them to components. So which you can see here. So you can see that I've got some car components that I was quite satisfied with, and I was happy to kind of send those off as well. And I believe, yeah, they should be pretty responsive. That kind of goes out of the frame there. But yeah, it works essentially. So yeah, so yeah, these are kind of ones I'm kind of happy with. The newsletter card, I'm still sort of trying to finalize some things, and then that will be sort of set in stone, and that will be done. I've started working on some inputs as well, just as like, you know, it's kind of good to have an idea of how like the atomic components will work. So things like buttons, things like inputs, like the tiniest pieces of the UI that you will essentially use to build like bigger, more complex structures. But yeah, I'll be sort of doing some work on this, most likely behind the scenes, between now and the next stream, just because, yeah, I kind of want to focus a bit more on the code at this point. And then I've got some icons as well that I've just set out too. So yeah, and the buttons are made, so this is essentially all one button, but it's just different variants of the same button. And when we get into designs, I'll show you like the power of this and why it's one of my favorite features of Figma. And it maps very well to like how you would create your components in React, having sort of different variants or different states. So I really like that aspect of it as well. So yeah, that's my component library in a bit more depth. And then of course we're just playing around with some mocking up. So I think in the next session we'll start fully building stuff out. It's gonna most likely be tomorrow, probably at 8 PM UK time. So because I'll be working all day tomorrow, but I'll be around in the evening, and I think we'll get into adding a bit more to this mock-up, and then we'll start coding properly. But for now, we're gonna get into setting up the repo. So let's jump onto that. And just before we do that, actually, a note on prototyping as well. We'll be looking at how to create this really fun prototype here, where we can switch to dark mode, can open up a menu, close it, and we've also got a hover state as well, which is actually really nice, and it's quite straightforward to create. So we'll be looking at that as well. So yeah. So anyway, let's get on to the stuff that we're trying to do. We probably won't get through all of these today, but we'll see how much we can get done. Whatever I don't do today, I'll just sort of continue with tomorrow. So cool. Right, so I know there's a couple of different ways, because I know you can obviously initialize the app, but I've kind of seen also people creating projects first on Vercel, and then so you can get started with the template. So okay, yeah, let me actually get this on the screen here. And what I'm going to do is just resize this so it's a bit easier for us to work with as well. Okay, that's kind of better. I should have done this before, so apologies. Okay, cool. So here we have, so we're on the Vercel site, and I've just gone on to creating a new project. So obviously, you know, you've got your account. It will show you the list of projects that you've already got. You can just hit new project, and you can either import a Git repository if you've already started it. So I was initially going to do this way, but I want to sort of test out their sort of GUI approach, because I know obviously you can do this on the command line. That's probably what I'm more used to doing. But yeah, let's check out setting up a Next.js template. So ask you what account. I'm going to select my personal account. So it's telling you that a Git repository has to be created, of course, so you can update your project after deploying it. So I'm going to choose GitHub. Cool. So it's just asking for your Git scope. So that's just essentially, I believe, the account. Cool. So it's going to be my portfolio version 2. Okay, and I'm gonna call it portfolio v2 framework preset Next.js. That's fine. Root directory examples Next.js. So that's all standard stuff. Cool. We haven't got any environment variables as of yet, but you'll be able to come back and obviously do this later. So we just hit deploy, and I think that's probably simple as it gets, hopefully. Cool. So the name of the project can only contain up to 100 alphanumeric. That's interesting. Let's see what that means. Ah, okay. Maybe it's, I've got a feeling it's the space. Let's see if that was, or I'll just say portfolio v2. Oh, lowercase characters, my bad. Didn't read that properly, actually. So, right, let's just do what we did for the GitHub repo. I think hopefully should be okay, unless it's only lowercase numbers and not. No, okay, we're good. Nice. So cloning, it's cloning the our repo. Installing build runtime, awesome stuff. Also, if anyone's interested in what I'm listening to, by the way, I've just got this like lo-fi for Twitch and YouTube playlist, which claims to be a no DMCA, so it's essentially fine to stream on YouTube and Twitch. And I've tested it out. I haven't got any strikes as of yet, anyway. So nice, and we get a nice congratulations, amazing stuff. We're up and running, so the stuff's all been set up. So what I'm gonna just do, you can bear with me. I just need to, let me update this now playing. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Okie doke. Oh, is it because of this? Haha, there we go. My bad. One moment. Let me just crop out all that. Lovely. Okay, so got the tune there on the right side, the left side of me. If anyone wants to know what's playing, these are just yeah, beats on that playlist. So congratulations, your project has been successfully deployed. Amazing stuff. Right, so we can visit that now, and it's just going to be this. Our done project finished. No, I'm joking. All right, so let's get into essentially cloning this and getting started with it. So how am I going to do this? What's my favorite way? I'm going to command line this. It's my favorite way to do things. She's taking a bit longer than usual. My terminal is usually a lot quicker, but it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to cd what we got. Yeah, I always forget like what's what. And where do I want to go into? Let's have a look. I'll just drop in my personal projects. Got a lot of like random projects. I do need to clean things up. I need to clean up all of my node modules folders as well, because we all know how much space that takes up. So that needs to get done. And I think I need to have like a maintenance. I was going to say maintenance day, but probably more like a maintenance weekend, just to clear out all of the junk on my computer. Like it's not even a joke. Cool. So we're in here now. So let's. Oh no, sorry, we're not making a directory. We're cloning. So we're going to git clone and let's go over to GitHub and grab. Ooh. Also, anyone, Tio, if you're still in here, if you're joining along, I mean, yeah, if you're sort of joining along and you're wondering the best way to set things up and you're not sure, feel free to go on the Next.js website. And if you go into creating a Next.js app, then like that's quite a straightforward way just to follow starting something up. I mean, you might already have experience with that, but just for anyone else that like might not know how to get started with this, the docs are pretty easy to follow. Like they're very straightforward. I think they've done a great job with their documentation. So yeah, it kind of shows you how you can create like an example app or something along those lines. So sorry, I should actually get that back up. Or even better still, I already have a tab. Sorry, I'm being awful with my tabs again. Please forgive me. There we go. Cool. So this is our app. We've got the new project there. Let's go to GitHub and let's take a look. Oh, look, it's me. Repositories, and we've got our portfolio v2 there. So I'm just going to go to code. I'm going to click on this guy to copy that. And all I need to do now when I come back to the terminal is git clone, and then it's shift insert to paste that in, and I just hit enter and let it do its thing. Cool. So now if I look in this again now, we're going to see that I've got a portfolio v2. So I'm going to jump into that. CD portfolio version 2. And here we are. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to... It has been a while. Control L. I was going to say, it's been a while since I've used the terminal, so I was forgetting how to clear it. Cool. So we can even look into our repo before we start here. We've got some pages set up for us. So what I usually do at this point now is that I hand it over to VS Code. So just code space and dot, and that will open up the project in VS Code. If you don't know that shortcut, and I can now say thank you to the terminal and close it up. And I'm just going to do the same thing with this window here, so it's not we're not missing anything. So I'll just kind of have it going up to here. Should be fine. Sweet. I actually had another one set up, but I realized I didn't need to do that. Okay, so we've got a project now initialized, which is pretty cool. And the repo is set up, so we can go and tick off those from the project setup. So we've created the repo, we've initialized the project, and now we just need to install dependencies and stuff. And this might be as far as we get. I'm trying to round off in the next like 20 minutes. So I'm trying to keep it a bit shorter today. I'm trying to stick to an hour if I can. No problem if we go a little bit over, but yeah, we probably won't get up to setting up the chakra theme. I think I'll hand that over to the next session, most likely tomorrow evening. So then we can look at setting up chakra themes, setting up storybook, and like working on building our UI essentially. And just to note as well, it's not going to be, I mean, at this point anyway, just because I want to sort of press on, it's not going to be the fact that we won't have this like fully built out UI where like we thought of every single component. I think it will kind of be a work in progress thing where we've got the essentials, like, you know, the buttons and sort of everything we'll need to get started. We'll have that done. And then as we go along, we'll sort of just be, you know, building our design. But my kind of, well, the way I'm approaching it is going to be to, if I've got a feature I want to build out or code, is to design first, have that done, and then build it out, and then move on to the next feature, design that, build it out, and sort of work iteratively. It's a difficult word to say. You know what, I'm not even going to bother. So let's install those dependencies now, and yeah, let's just have a quick overview of the actual file system. So we've got pages here, we've got public, and we've got styles. So obviously we've got the whole pages file system routing. So we've got app.js, and we've got this component here. So this is essentially what's allowing us to render the page. And then in the index.js and all the other pages sort of below this. So index.js will always be the root. So whatever the root, so if you go to the site and it's like there's nothing after the slash, then this is what will be displayed essentially. This is our home page. And then of course any of the other pages that we have, I mean, this is my understanding, I might be wrong, but any of the other pages that we have will essentially be their own root. We don't have to do anything. Next.js does it all for us, which is amazing. I think it's a really cool feature. And then we've got our API roots here, and they've just got some nice, some nice dummy data here for when, but we won't be working with that for a little while yet. But there's definitely a few features that I've got in mind that will be utilizing that, so we will get around to looking at it. And then we've got styles. So this is where we've got our CSS, the global home CSS. I'll be getting rid of these soon once we get into setting up the chakra theme, and we'll be looking at that in a bit more depth. But for now, let's get some dependencies installed. So let's look at what we've got so far. We've also got a README as well, just to note. So again, I'm going to aim to write this up as I go along, I think. But I mean, I might not do that on here. I might just do it away from here. But usually I wait till the end, which is obviously fine. But I just feel like I'd find it a bit easier. Because it always feels like a chore when it comes to the end. And it's like, oh, I've got to write that long README. But I'm going to try and do it alongside this as much as I can. So, right, package.json. So let's look what we've got. So we haven't got much here. We've just got Next, we've got React, we've got React DOM, and there's a long list of dependencies that we need to get going by the end of this project. But for now, what I'm going to try and do is just to install what we need right now, and then when it comes to using tools later on, we'll install it as we need it, kind of thing. Yeah, I just kind of like to kind of work this way. But this is our dependencies list. So, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to share all of these resources in the description of the YouTube video. So these are all on Notion, which is what I'm using for project management. I've sort of been over how I'm using it in previous videos, so feel free to check those out and just jump to the tooling section, and I think I'll probably run through it shortly on what I'm using it for. But yeah, this is our dependencies list and the dev dependencies list. So I thought it's just better to split it off at this point, just so we're clear on sort of what's being used. So essentially, the dependencies list, of course, are what we'll be using and what will be essentially shipped to production. But there's certain things that we don't want that just help us with like writing code. So stuff like Prettier and ESLint, Husky, like kind of these tools are dev dependencies. And for anyone that's not too clued up on it, or you don't know much about it, yeah, these are kind of what help us to have a better developer experience. And we don't need them essentially for when the code goes into production. So they're only for us in development. So we've got Next.js. So what we want to install next is Chakra UI. it installs frame of motion by default anyway, so it's cool. And then we can install Storybook as well. And so let's get to that now. So best way to do that, just to keep everyone sort of clear on this and to keep everyone in the loop. So let me just keep that there. Is to, I'm just going to come off this now. I'm trying not to open too many tabs. Just because, I mean, my computer can handle it, it's fine, but I just like to try and be sensible with my Chrome tabs, because we all know how much of the RAM and just all of your resources that they eat up. It's crazy. Right, so we're on Track UI now, and again, if you want more info on that, check the previous videos. I go into depth, sort of a bit more depth about how I'm going to be using it. So also, actually, a good point that's just come up for me as well is just to mention I'm going to be using Yarn for this. The specific, so I don't really know if there's a debate around whether to like who's using npm or who uses Yarn or whatever, because you know there's always debates in the developer community. But for me, I have always thought of myself as like someone that uses npm. It's just kind of the first one I use, and I just, you know, I don't really have too many opinions around what one I use. I just felt more comfortable because it's what I learned first. But the other day I was just doing a little test project just to test things out, and I installed a couple of the dependencies I'll be using on this. So I installed Chakra, I installed Storybook, and what I found when I was installing Storybook was you don't actually use Yarn or npm, you use npx. So the same way that you'd use, same thing you'd use to create a Next.js app is npx. And with Storybook, that uses, I believe it uses Yarn, sort of on top of that. So, but what had happened is that I'd actually ended up, or I think prior to doing the npx, I think I'd done npm install, like maybe everything else, or I'd npm installed something. And I don't know much about this myself, but essentially, obviously you've got your package.json, but you've got a package lock.json as well, which I believe is something to do with the sort of like versions of dependencies. And I should probably search this so I'm not misinforming people, just so that everybody understands what it is in a nutshell. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like in every project, but I still couldn't give like a clear example of what it is. So let's do that. Let's use Google. So package lock.json is automatically generated for any where npm modifiers over them. Okay. Cool. So where npm modifies either the node modules tree or package.json. Yeah. So it's essentially where like, here we are. The goal of package lock.json is to keep track of the exact version of every package. Yeah. So essentially, it's what keeps track of your versions. Yeah, it's stored. Okay, cool. By the way, Node.js.dev is a very, very helpful site. This helped me to become a lot more comfortable with Node. Highly recommend whilst we're on it. Anyway, so we kind of went into a slight rabbit hole there, but it's all good. It's all learning. So let's grab up the spin up the terminal in VS Code, and we can get going. So I'll just paste that in here. So we'll yarn add. So this is just installing Chakra UI, React. So this is where all of the components essentially are coming from. It's built on top of Emotion, so we'll need to install those as well. And then, like I said, Frame Emotion, which it's using for some of the transitions as well. We'll need those. So, oh, apologies, hit my mic. I feel a bit further away from the screen today. I think it's because if anyone's been watching the past streams, you might realize that I have changed around the layout a little bit. Okay. Cool. So that's all installed. So we can see it here in our dependencies. We've got that in. So that's wonderful. That's great. And now it's to set up Storybook. So let's check. Was that in our... I need to create like a... Well, actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's do that, and let's... So if you want to create a new window in Notion, just for anyone that might not know much about Notion, or you're interested in, or you're already using it, you don't know this, just a neat trick to create like another window is just to control and click on something, and it will go onto that thing, but in a new window, which is... I didn't know for ages, but it's very handy, because I always have so many different things I want to do at once, and it just helps me to stay on track. And now I can't even remember where I was, so I think I was going back to the live session plan just to check. Yeah. So cool. Install necessary dependencies. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to focus. I mean, like I said, I just want to install what we need now, but obviously we're not going to be doing much after this, so I'm going to install what we're going to need next, and that's just going to mainly be Chakra UI and Storybook. Those two I know we'll definitely be touched on in the next session tomorrow. So let's go and install Storybook, but let's look at the docs, just to keep everyone informed, just in case anyone's wanting to follow along. I can just show you how you would go about doing this, and it's literally as simple as running npx sb init. So as it says, run this inside your existing project's root directory. So just make sure, so in here, it's got the path that's pointing to Portfolio V2. If for some reason I jumped into, I don't know, like the pages folder or something, right? You don't want to install it in there, right? You want to jump back out. So cd ... and that'll jump back to the previous path, so out of that folder. So you want to make sure you're in the root directory before you install this, or probably all of these for this, for that matter. I don't know how much it matters for other dependencies, but I know that just as a general rule of thumb, so it's not made for empty projects. Cool. So let's set this up, and we might, if we have time, we'll do some config stuff, because there's a few bits that we'll need to get things working with Chakra UI for next time. So let's just see how we get on anyways, and so let's do that. So we can copy that, and we can jump into here, and we can just, I don't know what happened there. Let me just npx sb init. Okay. Nice. And again, want more info on this, you can check the previous videos, or you can just check the site. For all of these tools I'm using, they do have extensive and really in-depth documentation, and it's very sort of easy to navigate. I mean, I find personally that when I was first using Storybook for my earlier portfolio project, even though I didn't use it that much, I did look at the docs, and I found it sort of quite easy to get up and started with it. And and I think there's a community that's definitely developing around it, which is cool. And it's gonna be really interesting to see how this grows. I mean, it's definitely seems like quite a popular tool now that's being used across a lot of teams to build design systems and stuff like that. So very cool, and it just integrates and works well with Chakra. So it's a win-win in that respect. It takes a little while. There's a few things that we have to account for. Just bear with me. I just have to get back to a message real quick. Apologies. So while that's loading, let's have a look at what else. So while that's loading, let's talk about conventional commits. So once this is all set up, I'm going to make another commit because we've Next.js did the initial commit for us, but we're going to do another commit just to say that we've maybe installed Chakra and Storybook or something like that, and we'll be looking at conventional commits. I'll run you through it when we get to that point in a moment, but for now, if you want more information on this, you can actually go to, a specification for adding human and machine readable meaning to commit messages. I think this is seemingly much more sort of geared towards sort of open source projects and let's say if you're building like a design system or you're building a UI library, and you're dealing with things like change logs, semantic versioning, breaking changes, all of that kind of thing, which I still don't know that much about. I just know the terms. This is kind of this is like a standard that is built around that. But I just really like it for how straightforward it is and how you can essentially split up the different concerns of what you're working on. So if you're working on a feature, it's very specific to whatever you're doing, whether it's you're working on a feature, you're doing a bug fix, whether you're just making some styling changes, if you're doing something that actually isn't necessarily changing the source code, and it kind of has the different naming conventions for each thing. For me, it's just a very structured way to understand maybe what I did before if I'm coming to look back at things. And they've got icons as well, which is cool. I'm a little kid like that. I love I love those little icons, the little touches, seeing those icons in your repo. It's quite fun. I don't know if that's sad or not, but yeah, I like it. All right, so sorry, not sorry, but yeah, it's a very cool tool. So that, I believe that is done now. And now we can run Storybook. So I believe no, I don't want to just guess. Let's have a look. So we can say yarn Storybook. Right. So essentially with Storybook, it runs in its own kind of development environment. So it runs on a separate port to so obviously we've got the Next.js project we haven't started it up, we haven't spun up our server yet, but essentially that would be on port, I don't know, 3000. This is on a different port. Wow, that was very fast. So this is now our Storybook environment. So they've got some default components, some default buttons that you can play around with, and you can mess around with some controls and stuff and actions, and we'll look at these in more depth next time, which is going to be really fun because I love this tool. And you can really just play around with things, and I'll show you how we can do this for our own components and create things from scratch and bring them into Storybook. And that's kind of the knowledge I have around it. It's just is writing stories. So in terms of going on from there to actually sort of start to build more complex components from these little atoms and testing them and stuff like that, that's going to all be new to me. So it'll be interesting to kind of go through that journey live on here. It could turn out to be really awful, but it could turn out to be really good. So, and I'm banking on it turning out to be really good. So I don't want it to go awfully. So yeah, this is our nice little development environment. You've got this canvas view, which is just, you can just view the components here. You've got some docs as well, which is some documentation that you can write around each component about some of the states that it will have. You can do a lot with this, and as we go on, we're going to explore more and more about it, and hopefully it'll be informative for people. And if not, if anything, it'd be informative for myself to come back and kind of just run through, or just see how I work through a project. You know, I think, you know, like I mentioned before, that's kind of the big plus with this. So that's kind of set up, and so it's that. So we're all good there. And now it's on to the last few bits, which are is code formatting and linting. So we are using ESLint and Prettier. So let's just kill that environment. And let's get things kind of going here. So just before we close up. So I'm just trying to think. There's a whole bunch of things that I want to add. Is it yarn? Because I know it's npm. Like you can do npm. Okay, so you can do --dev. Okay. Cool. --dev. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of things. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic, so apologies if that's messing up the sound and stuff. Right, okay. Just bear with me. I'm just sorting out something real quick. I will not be a moment. Right. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's so yarn add --dev, and let's have a look at the tools we're going to be using. So I'm going to be using Prettier. So opinionated code formatter. So yeah, this is just a set of rules around like the styling of the code, which is just helpful, just so that, you know, there's the saying that I'm sure most people have heard, which is that the code should look like it was written by one person. And I think the first time I heard that, I think it was from Brian Holt. I was taking a Brian Holt course. Funnily enough, actually, the setup I use as far as like Prettier and ESLint, it actually follows like what he, I don't know if he still uses it, but when I took the course, which was about maybe a bit over half a year ago, and I think maybe that course was recorded a year or two ago, you know, he said that he, you know, this is the setup that he always uses, and you know, I started using it, and since then I've always found it just, you know, I found no issues with it. I mean, I know some people have some stronger opinions, and they want to use, you know, more opinionated setups, which is, you know, completely fine. You know, you do you. But for me, just having like this kind of bread and butter setup has kind of worked for me. So I just essentially have like Prettier that's just doing the formatting for me, and then as far as like the linting, of course, I'm letting ESLint do that. Yeah, I sort of don't want like ESLint to enforce any style rules. I'll just let Prettier kind of do its thing. So yeah, you know, if you're new to this, then it's got some things around this. So yeah. So I'm actually just going to look at we'll look at some other files as well, so we can just go do Prettier here. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly jump over to like another project and just take some stuff from this just for speed, just to speed things up a little bit. So let's have a look at what shall I use? Is it my portfolio? Yeah, we can look at my last portfolio. It's probably a good place to go off. Nice long file here. As you can see, there's a lot of different things that we were doing. So I'm just going to drag that off actually for a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and So we want ESLint, we want ESLint config Prettier. We want plugin import ESLint. I'm sure I've got somewhere I could just drag this out of, so I know I'm taking a slightly longer route, but it's fine. It's fine. ESLint plugin React, of course. That's got a bunch of really great standard rules around using React. And we want to use Babel ESLint as well. I believe. I mean, yeah, I think I'm gonna do it to be on the safe side. I don't have any reason to believe that Next will take care of that for us. So we'll just assume that it doesn't. Right. I think that's everything is okay. Unless I've spelled something wrong, it will let me know. So let's go for that. Let's see. And if all of that works out well, then we will close off here. Right. Okay. We good? I think we are. So let's set up our files real quick. So to get Prettier working, we're going to need to do a couple of things. Prettier RC file. So a .prettier RC file. This is essentially, and it doesn't have to be RC. So you can do .json. You can do .js. The differences between these. So like, let's look at this first. So if I was to start writing some rules here. Let's say like single, I think it's single quote, true. So this is not going to work for us. But if we do module dot, because it's a JavaScript file, it won't understand this. But if we do module dot exports equals, now you see it resolves. So the difference between that and the JSON, or just it without, which I believe is still the JSON, is that now obviously that's not going to work. But obviously JSON just understands this. We have to remember with JSON, the key needs to be in double quotes. Okay, and we don't have this comma. Okay, and now it works. Cool. So that's just a note on that. And just jumping over to another project to see. But yeah, I mean, we can do it either way. I'm gonna do it the module exports that way, just because I haven't done it this way yet, and I kind of saw someone do this like recently, and I just wanted to change things up. Why not? And I'm just going to copy and paste a couple of standard rules, and there we go. So on save, there we go. You can see that we now have single quotes, which is nice. And then let's set up some ESLint stuff. So we're going to do ESLint, ESLint rc.js. No. Yes. No, I forgot the dot. .ESLint. Sorry, my bad. There we go. Now we can see that icon. Cool. Okay, and now this is where we can have all of the extends rules and all these kind of things in here, which I'm not going to set up just now. I want to just quickly do the ESLint ignore .ESLint ignore, and just want to put in .next. So this is just some standard stuff here. The dist folder and node modules. Did I spell that right? Yes, I did. So let's close that down now. I've got a git ignore, which has everything we need. So that just comes with the project, which is really nice. Okay, module export. So what we essentially define here is some ESLint rules. So just bear with me. I'm on the other page going back to my other project just because it's going to be a bit easier to kind of work with things here. So I'm going to do extends first. We've got a little array which we want to give this. So add a comma for the next thing. And oh, my bad. Actually, that's a bit better. It will correct itself. And then we just need to pass in some rules. And these rules are just some kind of default rules that I have. They've helped me out. I think it should. I don't know if I need all of these now. I mean, because I was using it in a different context. I was using it with parcel bundler. I don't know if Next takes care of this stuff. I mean, if we get any errors and issues, we will obviously look at that. We'll probably have to do that next time because I'm running out of time now. I'm going to kind of bring this to a close. But we just got, so it extends. These are just the different sort of ESLint configurations, essentially. And we have to kind of list the plugins that we've got so that it can, it understands what they are. These sort of no console, no unused vars, like they were just kind of they're nuisances for me sometimes. So you have these numbers here. You've got 0, you've got 1, and you've got 2. So 0 is off. It turns the rule completely off. 1 is warning, so it will give you a warning. And I think that will usually come up. Is it in problems or something? It usually lets you know, but it's not like it won't stop the actual application from working, or the development obviously from working. But if you switch it to 2, then it will stop. It will throw an error. So obviously I'm just doing this for now, just because they do get on my nerves sometimes. No unused vars, because sometimes I'm planning to come back to something and I forget. But then again, I mean, if you've got it on, it's probably more helpful. Then it probably does more good than harm. But that was just from a last project where I was a bit more pickier. I might remove it. We'll see how we get on. But essentially that's it. I think we might add a prettier ignore file at some point as well. I know there's some reasons for that. I'm just going to quickly as well, just because there's there might be some use for this. It might be helpful just to add an editor config, and this is just some default config settings. Oh, I didn't post anything there. Let's post that there and save it. And this is just for anyone that's working with different editors, just to have some sort of consistent styling rules there that can pass over to different editors as well. So that's that done. ESLint file set up, Prettier file set up, and looking good. So we can sort of at least test the Prettier. We tested it last time, but if I just save this file, I don't press anything and I just save it, it should go. Oh no, we haven't done the Prettier right. Okay. We need to add something to our scripts. So I'm just jumping between 2 different files where I'm doing different things. So we need to add a couple of rules, scripts even. So let's put this in sort of under here. And this is just telling us what files to write on. Okay, that should be fine. So if I save that now, hopefully should pick up our file. Or if I make a change. Okay, I think no, okay, it's not running over our files for some reason. Interesting. Right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna look into this. I mean, I don't know if we necessarily need that. I believe we have like our format and save. So what we can do here is just double check our settings.json. So this has like some prettier stuff. Let me just see what happens if I set this to false so that it doesn't need to require config. Let me see if this works now. Well, let's at least try and space that. Okay, so that works. Works in terms of that, but like... Okay, let's try again. Okie doke. So it's still, yeah, it's still formatting. It's just not, it's not persisting with the single quotes. I had this issue like yesterday. I was testing out stuff and I managed to get it to work. I can't remember how I did, but I did manage to get it to work. But we'll look at this next time. We'll look at this tomorrow evening. Is it yarn next? How are we starting this up? Yeah, no. Next start. Next start. Is it okay? Let's try. Oh, okay. Sorry. Next dev. Next dev. Yeah, I was gonna say yarn dev. Yarn dev. Ready. Right. So let's see. Internal server error. So now we can go back and we can see what the problem is that we're going to tackle next time. So we've got an issue, which is great. I feel like this is a familiar message. Okay, it's saying something's breaking the rules of hooks. Multiple modules with names that are any different in casing. I see. Okay. Right. Okay. So we've got like. So this thing's not happy with me. Right, so we've run out of time, but we can look. Seem to have like a problem here. Maybe the issues with that. I'm not sure if that's where the error actually is, but we will certainly look at that next time, and then hopefully. We can get that sorted and push on. Well, what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to work on this probably either tonight, maybe tomorrow before the stream, and see if we can get to a solution. If not, we'll just work on bug fixes during that, and hopefully it won't take up too much time, and we can kind of get through that. It would be good to see how I can get over this one. So anyway, hey, how's it going, man? So I've just seen this. I'm not sure when you sent that message. So let me bring up my stream. Is it Zishan? Yeah, how's it going? Yeah, we're just setting up the project now. I'm just rounding off. We've kind of got the project, we've got the project kind of set up now. We've run into a little bit of a bug or an issue. Which will be solvable, no doubt. So bear with me. But yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, in the next stream, once I can sort of find a fix for whatever's going wrong here with starting this up, essentially we're gonna be looking at setting up. Well, finishing our Prettier setup, so just finishing the setup so we can get our code formatted, and potentially looking at some pre-commits as well using Husky. Might do that. I'll look at the conventional commits. We meant to do that obviously this time around, but didn't manage to. We'll look at that. We'll look at setting up Chakra, setting up the Chakra theme, and setting up Storybook as well. And yeah, we'll start sort of getting our design tokens all set up and sort of ready to go in terms of building out the actual UI. So that will kind of be next stream. So that's kind of more project setup stuff, but it's kind of getting closer to actually getting stuff, in development and hopefully getting some stuff pushed up to production as well. So thank you. Thanks for joining me with setting up, and hopefully, we'll squash this bug, whatever's gone wrong here. I'm going to be looking at that and see if I can figure something out. It should hopefully be not too complex. So, thank you guys, and take care, and I'll catch you in the next one. I should be streaming 8 p.m. UK time tomorrow, so hopefully catch you guys then.